changing the subject to the formula, powers and roots. So today's learning objective is I will be able to change the subject to the formula, including powers and roots. Okay, so before we start, we just have to remember what the opposite of squaring is. So if you have x squared, the opposite of that would be to square root it. If I had x cubed, the opposite of that would be to cube root it. If I had x to the power of 4, the opposite of that would be to find the fourth root, and so on. Okay, so if I have this example here, x squared equals d. We're making x the subject here. Now some of you might say, well, x is on its own. Well, this is x squared. We need to know what x is. So to get rid of a squared, you square root the other side. Okay, this time I've got x cubed, so the opposite of cubing is to do the cube root. Now you cube root everything that's on that side. Okay, in this case the a and the b go under the cube root. Okay, so I've got two questions for you to have a go at, so press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Okay then, so the opposite of squaring is to square root. The opposite of raising to the power of 4 is to find the fourth root. Okay, so I've got some questions for you to practice. Press pause, have a go, and we'll go through them. Okay, hopefully you got those correct. Let's look at our next example. So this time we've got x squared add e equals h. So like we said in the previous video, if you say this out loud, you are squaring the x and then adding e. So you're going to move everything away in reverse order. So the first thing I'm going to move is the plus e, and it's going to come over here and become a minus e. Okay, then we need to get rid of the square. The opposite of squaring is to square root, and we square root everything on that other side. Okay, let's look at another one. Now this means 3 lots of x squared. So you are squaring the x first and then multiplying that answer by 3. So the first thing we're going to move is the times by 3. The opposite of timesing by 3 is to divide by 3. Okay, so then we need to get rid of the square. The opposite of squaring is to square root. So x equals the square root of r over 3. Okay, the square root must be over everything. Make sure you exaggerate that. If in an exam it looks like it's just the r, you will lose the mark. Okay, I've got 2 for you to do there. So press pause, have a go, and we'll go through them. Okay, so we are squaring the x and minusing s, so we move the minus s first. Opposite of minus s is to plus s. Opposite of squaring is to square root everything on the other side. So remember, this means 4 lots of x squared. So you are squaring the x and then multiplying it by 4. So in reverse, we're going to move the 4 first. Times by 4 becomes a divide by 4. And then to get rid of a square, we're going to square root everything over that side. Okay, so I've got some questions for you to practice now. Press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Okay, hopefully you got all of those correct. Let's look at our next example. Okay, we've got x squared divided by a add 3 equals b. So we need to get rid of the divide by a add 3 first. So this comes up here and becomes times. So I get x squared equals b times a add 3. Okay, and then to get rid of a square, we square root everything on that side. Okay, let's look at our next example. This time we've got x squared divided by a minus 3. So we would square the x, divide it by a, and then take away 3. So let's move that in reverse order. Minus 3 goes first and becomes a plus 3. Okay, then you need to move the divide by a, which becomes a times by a. Now because you've got more than one thing here, you pop that in brackets. So you're timesing the whole side by a. Then we need to get rid of the square. Opposite of squaring is to square root. And you are done. X is on its own. Okay, so I've got 2 for you to do. Press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Okay, so let's move the c minus 7. So I get x squared equals b times c minus 7. And then to get rid of a square, you square root. Okay, and our next one here, you're going to move plus 4 first. So you get x squared over e equals b minus 4. And then you move a divide by e and it becomes a times by e. Remember you've got more than one thing, so pop that in the brackets. To get rid of the x squared, you square root everything on that side. Okay, so I've got some questions for you to do now. Press pause, have a go, and we'll go through them. Okay, hopefully you got all of those correct. Let's look at our next example. Okay, so we've got 3x squared divided by f add 4 equals 3. So we're just following the same rules, we're doing everything in reverse. So if we were doing this forwards, it would be square the x, times it by 3, divide it by f add 4. So the first thing we're going to move is this f add 4. So I get 3x squared equals 3 lots of f add 4. Okay, and then I need to get rid of this times by 3. So I move it to the other side and it becomes a divide by 3. And then I need to get rid of the x squared. So I get x equals 3 bracket f add 4 divided by 3, all square rooted. Here's one for you to have a go. Press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through it. Okay, so let's move this up here. Okay, then we need to get rid of the times by 3. And then get rid rid of the square, which becomes a square root. Okay, so I've got some questions for you to practice now. Press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Okay, hopefully you got all of those correct. Let's look at our next example. So now we're moving on and looking at square roots. So you need to remember that the opposite of a square root is to square, the opposite of a cube root is to cube, fourth root is to raise to the power of 4, and so on. So here we need to make x a subject to the formula, so we need to get rid of the square root. The opposite of finding the square root is to square. Now, because we have more than one thing over this side, we have to pop it in brackets and square everything. Okay, by putting something in brackets, you're meaning you're squaring everything on that side. Okay, got another example for you here. So, square root of x equals 3y. So the opposite of finding the square root is to square. Remember to pop it into brackets. If you just wrote this, then you are only squaring the y. Okay, so this is wrong. Okay, by putting it in brackets, you're squaring the 3 as well. Okay, so I've got 2 for you to do over here. Press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Okay then, so the opposite of square root is to square. So we square everything on that side. Okay, opposite of square root is to square. So we have to square everything on that side. If in doubt, pop it in brackets. Okay, so I have some questions for you to do. Press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Okay, hopefully you got all of those correct. Let's look at our next example. Okay, so this time we've got root of x, add 7. Doing exactly what we've done before, moving everything away one step at a time. So we can move the plus 7 first. So I get the square root of x equals a minus 7. To get rid of a square root, we square everything on that side. Okay, my second example, I've got the square root of x divided by y equals h. So I'm going to move the divide by y first. So I get root x equals hy. And then to get rid of a square root, I square. Remember to put it in brackets like you did in the previous questions. Okay, I've got 2 for you to do here. So press pause, have a go, and we'll go through them. So I've got some questions for you to practice. Press pause, have a go, and we'll go through them. Okay, hopefully you got those correct. So now I have some mixed questions for you to do. These are drawing on all the skills that we've done. So press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Hopefully you got all of those correct. Now what I need you to do is complete your exit ticket and send it to your teacher.